Hello! Ow! That hurt. Hello, and welcome to Fly Dangerous Alpha 2. Before we get started, first of all, let me just say, holy Christ, thank you so much for the reception that this has had over the last week. This has been a little bit mental. Thank you to everyone who's sent me bug reports and who's like tested things and sat with me on Discord and tested the input stuff. Thank you to everyone who's been sending me physics changes and like game suggestions and all the other little bits and bobs, people who've been sending me videos and streaming it and just playing it. That's just been awesome to see, honestly. Like, it's the best thing you could possibly hope for when you're developing a game, is to see someone playing it and be like, this is cool. That really drives me forward, so thank you so much. And also you guys who actually paid money for the alpha, like... So, what have we got for you this week? Well, I'm actually getting organised. First off, let's go through the meaty stuff first. It's mostly a maintenance thing, this. Like, there's a lot of small things that have been like really commonly asked for. So let's just dive in. Alright, the first thing we're going to notice here is that there's a new button for loading the customs. I've split the customs out of the free roam stuff to make it a little bit more simple. Like, the free roam is now just a seed. And the load custom is just the box that you can paste stuff into and go, and everything else is disabled. It just simplifies things. People are getting a little bit confused by that. I've also made this a little bit more genericized, so before this would only work with the terrain generation. Now it will respect a location ID within the custom data, and that means we can load the space station, asteroid field, whatever it is that ends up being in the game later on. The space station for now, really. So that's cool. Now, the biggest thing that has changed, which has been the biggest, most requested thing, is that the restart times were way too high, especially in the terrain and when you were doing... Wow, that's loud. Especially in the terrain when you were trying to do races and you kept having to restart. Now when you restart, it's instantaneous. It just pops you straight back. Now, there's a couple of caveats with that. The main one being that in a terrain world like this, it's not necessarily true that the terrain even exists anymore, but that's fine. What it does is it detects whether or not that tile is still there, and if it isn't, it will fade out and regenerate, but it still doesn't reload the entire map, so it's still a lot faster. It just waits for the terrain generation to catch up, basically. So if I press it now, maybe? So it fades out, it says it's generating the terrain, and then we're back. So that just stops it being like ugly and popping in everywhere and like having broken collision for a couple of seconds or whatever. So that's cool, that's a big change. Now to go with that, because that's much faster now, I've made checkpoints in races make a lot more sense, like in the context of a game like Trackmania or whatever. So if I start a custom race, instead of having to go through the first checkpoint to get the race going, it's immediately started. I've actually started inside of the checkpoint, and I fixed the bug where you could just go straight to the finish line. Yes, that was a thing. And obviously I can restart this as well now, so if I restart it, restarts the timer, and it resets, resets the state of the map. So that one I've just hit, and checkpoint has just been hit, and da-da-da. If I press that button, now it's ready to race again. So you can very, very, very quickly get back into the action instead of waiting for it to reload, because that sucked. Let's see, what else? Oh, boost mechanic. Yes, the boost mechanic improvements. So before it would go to 932 meters per second and then hit straight back down to 80. Now you can see it's gradually dropping back down to where we want it to be. This is more in line with how it works in Elite. It's definitely not the same like curves or anything. It's just a very temporary improvement. Someone reported it to me as feeling like they'd collided with something, like there was dodgy collision because it just jerked forward as the ship slowed down. So that's a lot smoother now. Now on top of that, there are some physics adjustments. So before, you probably noticed that if you clipped anything, you would go into a spinning, spiraling mess. Now you kind of bounce off of it and you still spin and you still do a little bit of a spiral, but it's nothing like it was before. It's not an uncontrollable nightmare. I think in most game modes that aren't to do with racing, hitting something like that would cause damage or something, but right now it just makes it a little bit more controllable, a little bit less mental when you hit something. Boop. It looks ridiculous because, you know, that would turn anything into an absolute pancake, but never mind, eh? So these physics options are also in the dev panel, So I've added a couple of extra things. I've exposed the rigid body stuff, so you can tweak the mass of the ship now, and the drag and the angular drag, which are 0 because Elite Dangerous, mostly space game. I probably want to keep that like that, but you can play with it, and if you think it should change, let me know. And I've also added the boost speed, max speed drop-off time. So it's currently 12 seconds. There's a grace period of about 30% of that, of whatever that time is, where it's just maximum. So it gives you the full boost for about 3 seconds, and then it gradually brings it back down over that period. And I think it's following a ease out curve? I can't remember. But have a play around with it if that's something you're interested in. Oh, just real quick, I forgot to mention when I was recording earlier, I've added into this dev options also this inertial tensor multiplier. This is the value that is used to calculate, or manipulate at least, the moment of inertia around the craft. The higher this number is, the less the craft will spin when you collide with something. The smaller this number is, the more you get towards what it was like before. If that value is 1, then it's the same as the first alpha. So it's quite a large change. I think it might be a little bit too much, but I don't know. Have a go, have a play around with it. That might come down in the next alpha, I'm not sure. And then finally in this build there are a couple of big input changes. So thank you again to everybody who's been spending time with me helping me fix that. It's still not there for everything, and especially not Virtual flight sticks. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get answers out of Unity and answers from like other devs and stuff. I think the bottom line is just nobody knows right now, and until I can get my hands on some hardware or something, I'm not sure what I can really do about it. But hopefully most of the devices are sorted now. If you have 2 identical flight sticks that aren't Virtuals, will you give those a go? Tell me if there's any problems with that. If there are, I've got a potential fix, but I didn't want to put it in because I thought it might be already fixed from something else. So input is complicated in Unity. I've also added the actual device to the bindings pages now, so it's not as ambiguous as before, because people were saying, well, it already says left stick is Y to the pitch, and it's like, no, that was the controller, which is the defaults, and now it's really explicit. And also, if you've got any major problems with input, like it's just not detecting it at all, I've added a console, like a Quake style console. So if you press the backtick key, which is next to the like number 1 on your keyboard, it'll bring down this little menu, and this is telling me exactly what devices it's found. It's found a couple of devices that weren't paired to the user for various obscure Unity input reasons, and it's forced them. So hopefully that's fixed a whole swath of issues. It seems to have fixed quite a lot for the people that I've sent dev builds to. So yeah, let me know about that. And finally, I've fixed a rather obscure bug, which is, I think you've probably seen it if you played the first alpha. Sometimes you would start the map and the ship would either be spinning or smashing into something or whatever. There was a tiny period during the loading of modular scenes where there was a possibility that you could send input in. Now, because it's input that aggregates over time, the longer it took to load, the more pronounced the problem became. That's been fixed as well now, so it just doesn't have enabled input until the level loads and the game loader says, right, we're good to go, everything's faded in. Cool. And last but not least, a couple of people have asked me for a Linux build, so that's been bundled in with this now. There should be 2 versions upon itch.io. I've not tested it. I have no idea if it works. It is 110% not supported because I just do not have the time right now. But if it works for you, awesome. Do let me know. If it doesn't work, I'll take it down. So just let me know. And if anyone's interested in like testing Linux builds for me, if it doesn't work, please let me know. It should, from everything I've read on the Unity docs, just work. But it's Unity, and I don't believe that for a second because the input system's supposed to just work. So, oh god. Flight sticks on Linux. Well, anyway, I hope you have fun. I will continue to post some custom maps into the Discord if you fancy having a play around with them. Again, there's not much content-wise in this one. It's mostly maintenance. But it should be some nice quality of life updates. Next week, I'm hoping to do a little bit more actual features, even if they're just basic things like recording your best times on maps, and possibly something to do with different environments, because we had to play around with that on the Discord with a couple of people, and we made some neat experiences, shall I say? And they would be quite cheap and quick to get in, so I think I'm going to have a go at that. Cool, have fun, let me know how you get on. Peace.